You need to introduce yourself. The audience has no idea who you are.
Who doesn't?
Uh,
The audience.
Anyone who would be listening to this in the future who's not a member of our immediate family.
Okay. Well, so how do we start? We start with there's a company called Sioux City Compressed Steel out there in pretty near Sergeant Bluff.
Well, that's not exactly introducing you, because you're not Sioux City Compressed Steel. You're Norman Bernstein.
Okay.
So let's introduce Norman Bernstein and who Norman Bernstein is.
Well, Norman Bernstein is the son of Sam and Gussie Bernstein, who live in Sioux City, Iowa, but they've just moved out to the Dakota Dunes, and so they and Norman Bernstein and Jack Bernstein own a company called Sioux City Compressed Steel, and what? And State Steel. Although Norman now has very little to do anymore with State Steel, except that he still Jack and David Bernstein, who's Jack's child, is one of Jack's children, is operating State Steel. It's getting confusing.
Yeah.
Anyway, the company, we in a sense we had the same company. It's, and I think that's what it is. It's it's just both companies.
All right.
And Norman has given up a lot of the activity with State Steel anymore, but he still keeps the office in Sioux City Compressed Steel. Down at back in 211 Court Street.
Yeah.
It's confusing to anybody who it doesn't.
Yeah.
Are you confused enough, or do you want to get more confused?
I think I'll make a personal note.
Okay.
So, I guess, Norman, and since...
Yeah. Yes?
Okay, so let's start with a story like... why don't you tell me about how State Steel got started?
State Steel.
Yeah.
My dad came from a little town called Brooklyn, Iowa, which is about a population of about 1,000 people. Well, that goes all, but I don't guess we don't want to talk too long about it. But I will start with my dad. My dad was about 14 years old, and his father got sick, and so he still went to school, and he still kept up the family business. And so then when he graduated college, he took a trip to New York, and eventually he decided to go back to New York, and he did. And so we don't want too much of that part, but eventually my dad decided to come back to the Midwest. The New York wasn't working out, and so he wound up in Sioux City, and that's when he decided to put a scrapyard in Sioux City, and he found an auction, and so they got together, and then they decided to get this area down there at 211 Court Street, which is where the Sioux City Compressed Steel started. And you said, how did State Steel start? Well, so after a few years, um, they, my dad decided that he'd just start a business and start selling new steel, and that was when State Steel started. And so he bought some new steel, and he sold it, and things started working out pretty good, and so pretty soon he was into the new steel business, and that's how State Steel got started.
Right. And then the State Steel story is a little bit less interesting than the story behind compressed, I guess. So what about the compressed?
So what about compressed?
How about when compressed got started?
Well, compressed got started when my dad decided to buy a baler, which is a pretty big machine, especially at the time for what the scrapyard was. There were not a lot of balers at that time, and my dad bought it, and he bought it before he knew what he was going to do with it. But but that's how he got started, and he came to Sioux City with but he didn't have the baler yet. Let's see, I kind of can't remember. When did he get the baler? I should remember, but I can't remember. But he got the baler very soon, very early on, I should say.
Yeah.
It's a better sentence. And so with the baler, when he got the baler, and he finally decided he was going to put it up in the yard, which we still have down there, the one in that area where State Steel is now. And that's kind of how that's really how it got started. And it's still there. You say State Steel or compressed steel. Well, they started it at the same. They were one business, in a sense, up from 19. Well, really, what started about in 1940. That's when they started, and that was before Alex was born. And
Yes.
I think that was, well, I was a pretty big kid. I was probably about 8 years old.
Big kid indeed.
And so there we were, and so Norman would come down when I was 8 years old, and I'd do some kind of work, not very much, but I'd sit there and sort out things and a few things. But so anyway, we that's where we started compressed steel, and then eventually when we decided to go into the new steel business, which was a little bit later, then it was just still on the same property and in the same yard, and so that was basically how it got started. Really, and for a long time, we got the scale that originally the yard was a coal yard, and it was the scale was 30 foot long, which is not very long. It's about as long as this. Well, this would be about 20 foot, but it was a scale of, well, you can figure it out, but it was 30 foot long. And so eventually we decided to move it out into the street where it would be a lot easier to weigh trucks.
Yeah.
And so that kind of, got away from some of that, being when into the yard and then backing out of it and all this, and it was a pretty good scale. That location is still where there is a scale still at that very same spot, out on the street.
Yeah.
And at this point, that scale is. I'm just trying to think. Well, that scale's got to be I think it's still 30 foot, isn't it?
I don't see any reason why they would have changed it.
Yeah, I think it's the shorter scale, and it's, but that's there, and so that's where state steel was, and compressed steel. They were really in the same location and doing the same things. We did by that time though buy more land. We had bought the land out coming up to the north, right there where the state steel in that block, at the whole block there, and then it came back across the street. Yeah, but anyway, eventually we had all of the land across, which is now over here at Sioux City. At the Sioux City, where we are, across the street, and down to the where the scrapyard was now, and so that was really where it was. When we had a baler, we made a baler across the street to the south, and it's quite a bit of land, and that land was still there until very recently. But I think now I don't think we're doing anything with it, and I think we still own it, but maybe we sold it. The little bit across the street to the where the yard is. I mixed up how to say it, but anyway. So you asked when did which one starts? Compressed steel?
Yeah, compressed. Yeah. I remember you told me once when I was driving you about there are two components to the story that were rather funny. The first, I remember you saying that your father thought that he was just buying the baler, like not the lane that the baler was on. He thought he was just buying the baler. If I remember.
What did you say about the baler?
Your father thought that he was just buying the baler. Was that?
Okay.
And then it turned out that he actually ended up buying the lot with a baler on it.
No.
Was that, or am I misremembering something?
I think it's a little remembered. We bought the baler. We bought the baler before we left Brooklyn, Iowa. Even, and we never got it. We didn't bring the baler in until after we moved into Brooklyn, into Sioux City. That's when we finally went to get the baler. And there's a little bit of a story there because Norman actually went along on the ride to go get the baler in some place down there in Illinois or somewhere, and I forget where the baler was. It wasn't Illinois, but it was some state that down there. Anyway, we had the baler very early on, and we put the baler. Well, we put the baler in a couple. No, we didn't. We didn't. We sold the baler later, and bought a bigger baler. Oh. And that was the one that we moved over to the south, in that next yard over, and I think that baler was still there all the way up until 19. Until 19. The end of the 90s, something like that. Huh. I'm kind of mixed up. It was a long time. We had that land for a long time, and we didn't move over to where we are now, which is way up there, almost to Sergeant Bluff now. Yeah. You know where it is.
And the industrial park.
Industrial park, yeah. And so that's where did we have a baler? We don't have a baler anymore. How do you like that? Huh. I lost the baler. But then for a long time we working over there in that other yard to the south, and that's when we decided to get a shredder, which was a pretty big step. The baler kind of got a little bit, not. It just wasn't so important anymore. Now it was a shredder. The shredder was the important part, and then eventually we moved out to where we are now, out there in the almost by Sergeant Bluff, where it is, and that's where the yard is right now as compressed steel, and so then but when we moved out there to where compressed steel is now, it's we kept the area, but well, it's getting mixed up in it. But anyway, at this point in time, it's the shredder is a very important part of it, and the state steel part is a very important part of state steel.
I can imagine.
So there's two companies, and Norman has very little to do anymore with state steel, actually. But I still kept my office in state steel, my office in Sioux City Compressed Steel, where I go to about 4.5 times a week, kind of, because it seems like I'm always going over to a doctor's appointment now.
Yeah.
So
89 and still working.
Well, I'm not really working. I go there and I sit and I fall asleep, and quite a bit.
Oh.
And I think that they just pretty well put up with me rather than.
Oh.
But
89 and still trying to help, I guess.
Yep. It's that. Oh yeah, I'm 89, am I not? Is that good English? Why not?
Yeah.
Am I not?
Now for another story. What about how State Steel got named? Because wasn't there?
Yeah. Well, when my dad decided, when Sam Bernstein decided to get into the new steel business, he called it. What did he call it? I forget. He called it something.
I want to say he was going to name it Sioux Steel or something like that, wasn't he?
Yeah, that's what it was. It was something like Sioux Steel, and then so then somebody came along and came in and said, you can't call yourself Sioux Steel because that's not my name. I'm a company in Sioux Falls, and that's Sioux Steel. You can't do that. And so my dad had already had a truck, and he had the sign Sioux Steel painted on it. And so my dad decided he went over to the painter, and he said, I got this. We got to change the name on this. How can you paint another sign on it saying something like what would be a good name to call it? And the painter suggested, well, why don't you call it State Steel instead of Sioux Steel? And he said, okay, that was just 3 letters, and it was less expensive, so he named it State Steel. And so that was pretty good. It only was about $100 for the change, and he had the truck was in place, and that was it.
Yeah.
So consequently, State Steel became State Steel.
Yeah.
And so that's how it got named. Well, in any event, he did start off doing quite a bit of business. Eventually, it came much faster than he expected it to, and so it got going, and that was about it. And today, it went into many aspects of New Steel, which is a rather major steel company in the Sioux City area, in Sioux City. And that's how State Steel got named State Steel. And the story, it's a pretty active steel company.
Yeah. So.
And the Bernstein still own Sioux City Compressed Steel, which is now located down there by Sergeant Bluff. Is that making more sense?
Yeah. So, I guess that's the story. State Steel and Compressed Steel. Unless you got anything else you want to
Add to it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, getting a shredder seems to be like a major thing for any scrapyards. There are a lot of scrapyards that have shred. There are a lot of shredders in America, but the major shredders all get in it. They do own the majors. The major steels are owning shredders, and there's a lot of smaller scrapyards, but they don't have the same clout if they don't have a shredder in this day. And that's been going on now for ever since, certainly through the turn of the shredder and more. And that was just the thing that made the various shredders, either major places or minor scrapyards. And I'd say compressed steel is one of the major scrapyards in the country. There's some very exceeding scrapyards along the countryside, but we are involved with this. Compressed steel is involved with having a lot of the what the hell do we call ourselves? But what's the other company we have?
You're referring to State and Compressed Steel, or is that?
Well, now I'm referring to that. I can't think of what the ones are that we have with Toby Shine. Our partnership.
You have a partnership with another company. What do they do?
Yes, here's where I start to get blanks. I have it'll come to me when I'm not thinking about it, but that's
always does.
Hey Sheila, she can't hear.
Yeah.
I should know it, but she sounds like she's outside.
Sound like she went in the garage. I heard a door close.
Yeah. State Steel? No.
No. Here she comes now. Now you can ask.
What's the name of the company that we have with Shine Brothers in partnership?
TJN?
That's what I said. Yeah. So it's TJM. So then we decided that we needed to change, get a different name, and we called it TJN. That stood for Three Jewish Nerds. And so that's what TJN is called.
Three Jewish Nerds.
but that's not really. It's supposed to be named after Toby, Jack, and Norman.
All right. Oh, one of those is certainly more entertaining than the other, though.
Which one?
Oh. I don't think I'll let common sense decide that.
Okay, so you think it's Three Jewish Nerds? Okay.
That's all right. All right. What does TJN do?
What does TJN do? That's mostly a scrapyard, although they do handle some new steel also. And the new steel, it's kind of we sell most of the new steel gets sold through State Steel, so it's because State Steel is a rather major steel company now in the Midwest, but not as much. For instance, there's Alter. Alter is a company, and they're incredible, in that they have bought so many scrap yards. They bought approaching 100 scrap yards, which is incredible. It's just, I don't want to own that many scrap yards, but we have approximately 6 or 7 scrap yards of the TJNs.
Huh.
But you take what Alter has 100 scrap yards that they bought. And it's, well, that's what they want to do. They buy it, but we don't want to get involved in that many. At least not now. So I guess that's basically about what the companies are. But boy, where they wanted to buy that many. The trouble with that many companies is you gotta run them, and different people have different ways of doing things, and it gets to be a lot of work. So that's about most of it then. But Alter has become a very major thing in the scrap business, and they're up among them in the whole United States. They're among one of the largest. Like I think they're like the 5th major companies in America. So, but that got way out. I think that's more than the story should be. It's
Yeah, it starts going into other things.
I think we should leave it with TJN and compressed steel.
Yeah.
And State Steel.
Yeah. Surely you have more stories than just State Steel and compressed steel.
Should we have more stories?
Surely you have more. I mean, you're 89 years old. You've lived through some world events, I'm certain. I can't think
world
of them.
Events, you mean like World War II? And like, that's a major event, but...
I mean, yeah, you have, haven't you? When was that? History isn't...
When was what?
I guess, when was World War II?
1940. Let's say it started about 1937 in Europe, and it spread to when Japan finally attacked the United States. Then the United States got into it in 1941, and we were fighting that until 1945. Long war.
And when were you born again?
1933.
1933. So, you'd have been, what, like 8, 9 during World War II?
I was born in 33, and World War II started basically in America in 1940, and I did have, it's a very sad thing for the family, but a lot of people lost people in the military, and we did lose. I had an uncle that was one of my dad's brothers, and he enlisted in the army because otherwise he would have gotten drafted, is what it was. But he enlisted in the army, and he wound up being in a bomber squadron. He was a crew chief, and he did get killed over Germany. And that was a long time ago, and I still cry when I think of it. It's a very sad thing for me. But I don't know why I'm so... well, my grandmother... I remember my grandmother, too. She'd always cry, my Harry, my Harry.
Yeah.
His name was Harry.
Well, Harry, I guess we'll be remembering you a little longer then. Recorded on digital formats for as long as the internet is online, which will hopefully be a little while longer then. Let's surely have something beneficial When did you meet Sheila? When did you meet Bubby?
Well, I went to college, and so I graduated college about 19. Let's see, getting close to about 1950.
1950.
So somehow or other, after I graduated, then I got a job in New York.
Yeah.
But not New York, it was in New Jersey.
So, two questions. Where did you graduate from college from?
University of Minnesota.
Minnesota. Huh. And
I started college at the University of Iowa, and I said, well, I want to take some courses in metallurgy, and so he said, yeah, we've got some courses in metallurgy, and so I had for 3 years I managed to get some courses in metallurgy, and then he ran out of them.
You ran the college out of courses on metallurgy.
Yeah, man. So I decided, well, hell, I don't want to graduate. What am I going to go graduate in as a major? I want to do it at metallurgy, and so I quit in the middle of like right at the change of the new year.
Right. Oh, yes. In the background, there's.
Is she on the telephone, or?
I think she's gonna try and get the grill open because it's windy, but the porch where the grill is just fine. She should be fine.
Looks like there. Yeah, boy, look at those.
Yeah, looking out the window. Today,
that's a lot of wind.
This Memorial Day. It's
Yep.
a very windy Memorial Day.
There's a change of climate. Something's happening.
Yeah, I thought I saw it rain a little bit earlier too, so that's probably why it's windy today.
Well, I don't know why the rain. I'm not saying why, but I will accept it that it's windy, and it's gotten more windy than it used to be.
Well then, anyway, you were talking about what you do in New York after you graduated, or I guess dropped out of college then.
Okay, well, I graduated with a degree in metallurgy.
Oh, you did something good with it, I guess. Okay, you're saying you.
And so the place I went to work with had metallurgy with what they were doing, and what I was doing there was metallurgy, and so I worked there for about 3 or 4 years, and then I got called. I figured it was time for me to go into the Army because they would otherwise they were going to call me in anyway, and so I managed to. So I did. I went into the Army and stayed there I got there, and then for about a year, and then at the end of that year I managed to get a job back in where'd I go? I forget where I went, but I went in the Army, and then where did I wind up? I forget where I went next. I think I went back to. I'm kind of mixed up where I went next, but somehow I wound up back in the Midwest after a while.
Right.
And then somehow or other I just kind of came back, and I wound up in Minnesota, which was interesting. And so anyway, eventually I wound up back in Sioux City, and when I decided to go back, I decided to go back to Sioux City because my dad was then decided to buy a shredder,
And so that's when you came
which is
back.
a pretty big operation, and so I decided, well, I think I'd be just better go back to Sioux City, and that's what I did. And when I got to Sioux City, then Sheila's mother heard that I was back in, and she asked if and Sheila had decided to come back to help her, to help there because her parents were getting. And anyway, Sheila came back to Sioux City, and so I wound up meeting. What's Sheila's first name? Sheila.
Yeah, I would assume that Sheila Bernstein's first name is Sheila.
Yeah, well, so that was a good point. I knew that. I did know that.
I know, you jest.
It was a joke. Yes.
You've got a good sense of humor.
Yeah. Well, so anyway, I took Sheila. So I went with a few days to Sheila, and then decided I wanted to marry her. She was very young. She was only about 19, I think. Well, she's 9. Anyway, she's 9 years my junior, and I'm 89. So that means that Sheila must be about 21.
Yeah, and she looks quite good for her age.
Yes, she does.
Yeah.
So anyway, we somehow or other and it was going to be somehow with the Jewish religion. There was a long period of time that we couldn't get married for some reason in the springtime, and I bumped into that again, but at the time I did. Anyway, so we got married, and then well, somehow or other we wound up going on a honeymoon to go skiing.
You went skiing on a honeymoon. I mean, that seems...
Yeah.
I mean, people have done weirder things. And honestly, skiing doesn't seem that strange. It seems like an interesting experience.
Seems like a what? A strange experience?
No, an interesting experience. I mean...
Well, we do. So we went out. We decided we were going to go out to Colorado to do some skiing on the honeymoon, and then Sheila wanted to go to Florida. So after that, we were going to go to Florida, and so we got to Florida, and I remember the first thing we did was we started to drive the car. We found a good parking place because the whole thing was just empty. Nobody was in this big space. So we started driving across that, and we found out that the reason that big parking lot was empty was because it was full of ice, but there was water under the ice, and no cars could park there because it kept breaking through the ice. And so here I am driving on the ice and breaking through, and I realized, oh boy, I'm going to get stuck here good. So I kept driving fast, and I kept breaking through the ice, and I finally made it. And pretty soon there was a crowd by the side of the shore. Everybody was cheering us on, go, go, go. And I kept breaking through the ice. And finally I got through at the other end, and so everything was fine. And I made it, and I was a hero. So that was that episode, but that many things like that kept going. It was not a good experience because Sheila did not. Sheila started to get lessons in how to ski, and the first thing she did was she sprained her ankle, and so that was kind of the end of the experience for Sheila.
Yes, off to a great start. Yeah, first thing you do is sprain your ankle.
So
Yeah.
anyway, eventually we went back to get ourselves whatever we did after in trying to ski, and it didn't work out. So pretty soon we left and we went to Miami, and I got to Miami, and and I got sick.
Oh no.
So that didn't work. That didn't work too well. So eventually we got done with our honeymoon, and it wasn't a very good honeymoon because
Yeah.
everything kept going wrong. But then eventually we came back to Sioux City and got a house and rented a house, and my brother was also married about the same time, even though he's a lot younger than I am.
Huh.
And anyways, so we moved over in Sioux City, over there on the north side, in like an apartment house. And so we decided. So then we settled down to live in Sioux City, and that was the beginning of what? Of our living in Sioux City.
Yeah.
And but I think, yeah, that was quite a few years before I got to Sioux City, really. But that was me. Am I talking about me now? I'm talking about compressed steel, or?
Well, I guess if there's, I guess I've learned about you what you did with your early life, when you met your wife and had a horrible honeymoon.
It was interesting.
I mean, certainly memorable, I guess.
Yep.
And then, I guess, yeah, a fair chunk of your life has been compressed steel.
What about compressed steel?
You've worked at it for, I guess, since you've been living in Sioux City, I guess.
First, let's see. First, the first place I went to work was out in not New York, but in New Jersey, which I like to pronounce it as New Jersey.
Sounds like you're a native already.
Oh yeah. I always talked with a New York accent, you know. You recognize the New York accent?
Yeah, it sounds like a New Yorker.
So that was, but I did. Let's see. So where all did I go? Well, then I went. Somehow or other, I moved to. I got a job in Council Bluffs, and I worked there in Council Bluffs for a while. In fact, I'm kind of not remembering some of that too well. It got out of the way, but anyway. But when I finally decided to come to Sioux City, which and I was in Minneapolis for a while, also. So there was some time which I'm really not recalling too well. But then anyway, then I did come to Sioux City again, and I got a house. I got a house on near the east side, on the west side, over there by down. I'm just not getting it too well where what it's over on by the names won't come to me, but it was on the east side of Sioux City. And so I lived there for a while, and eventually got a house up there in where up there by Hamilton, up the hill.
Yeah.
And so I decided to build a house there. I mean, I didn't build it, but
Oh, yeah. You paid someone to build a house for you.
the who?
Or you paid a construction company to build a house for you.
Well, more or less, but I got a very good deal there because a friend of Sheila's family was a contractor, and so he gave us a very good thing, and building the house, and so I was there for quite a while with Sheila. And across the street, I don't know if you ever, did you ever know anything about when we lived up there at,
I don't know. I know I was up in that sort of area for like a year when I was born, and then we moved out to the dunes when I was about
yeah, that's probably
two.
about it. I did move to the dunes right about 1994, I think. About 1994, and I came out to the dunes.
In this house? In
Yeah,
the one we're in right now?
And then I built, I built what I had this house built. And
That's when this house was built?
yeah, the time just passed rapidly, and the next thing I knew, here I was in 2020.
It's 2022. I know.
So that's about the whole story of my 89 years.
Sounds like they've been a good 89 years. Aside from a few parts where he got sick. But,
Who got sick?
Not just joking about your honeymoon again.
Yeah, I mean I did start to get sick when about 10 years ago, I guess.
Yeah.
And the sicknesses were different. I mean, like my foot, and I didn't want you to see that terrible
late.
foot.
Yeah.
And why don't I look at to see? Whoops, this foot's worse. So, sorry for showing you that.
You're 89 and
How's my arm? My arm okay?
you're doing well enough. You got, I don't know, you've lived.
Yeah. No, I'm not complaining. I won't complain if I ever lose my eyesight completely, because I can't see out this side. I don't know what brought me to come out here. Well, I do know what brought me out here. It's because of the taxes, the income taxes.
Right, living in South Dakota, you don't have to pay, or you have reduced income taxes.
Yeah, well, that's right. It kind of works.
But wait, don't you work in Iowa? Because you live
Yeah.
in South Dakota, but then you have to cross the bridge, which puts you in Iowa in order to get compressed. So don't you have to pay income taxes for your money made in Iowa?
I do, but I also have to pay for income taxes on things that I've got. What do I want to say? That I own things, and like I can't think of the words I want, but I have certain income that I get also, which I
Like investments and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
So your work income from compressed is taxed with Iowa tax rates, but your everything else is taxed in South Dakota.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I came out here. We had friends out here and things like that. And the time goes quickly, and
Yeah. And you had your
and the first. I remember we built this house. It was back in 1994. It's kind of a funny thing just to show how time flies by. In I bought a house on the west side, and the house was built in about 1918. So let's say if I go to 1940, I moved into that house with Sheila, and at that time. So that was about 30 years. From 1914 to 24, 34, 44. It was about 3 years, 30 years, and that really seemed old. It was, 30 years ago this house was built. I used to think of that. But But then it turned out that by 1990, I built a house, which is this one,
Yeah.
and that was 30 years ago.
Wait, yeah, that is 30 years ago.
I mean, it just seems like I just moved into it.
Yeah, certainly feels about right.
But
House is in good condition, so.
so that house was not so terribly old as I thought it was.
Yeah.
But anyway, I eventually sold it, moved out here,
Wonder if that house is still standing out in Hamilton.
and which one's standing in Hamilton?
Yeah, the one you lived in Hamilton. Because I know, like, I wonder if it's still standing.
Oh, it is.
Who knows?
It wasn't Hamilton. It was 14th Street.
It's proximal to Hamilton, which is what I know. What I know that area as.
Yeah, I mean, I could walk. I could walk from here, from there to where we used to live. It was Roth Street, is where it was. You probably don't recognize Roth Street.
Is that close to? Because I know there's like I know that area is like
We're
close to the synagogue
Well,
and the.
yeah, well, kind of, but it would start there. And I don't know. It kind of started over there by Hamilton. Anyway, so somehow or other I got to where Military Road starts. You know where Military Road starts, don't you?
Kinda.
It starts over on Route Street, and it is kind of interesting because it's starting over there. It's well, it just goes on along with Military Road. Military Road. A lot of people don't realize this, but Military Road makes me a little sad. Also, have you ever heard of Custer?
Custer?
Custer's Last Stands?
Yeah.
Well, so Custer's Last Stand, it was fought over here in Iowa, going over to South Dakota, is where they had the battles, and that was along Military Road, and Custer got killed there. So, like we have it, they made Custer's. They named the road after Custer, Military Road. It's kind of a little kind of sad type of thing, but so anyway, here we are living out here in Dakota Dunes,
All right.
and so your family, your mother and father, they wanted to live out here with us to take care of us. So anyway, that's how we kind of wound up here for quite a while. And we're still here.
Still here. Yeah.
So 90 years is not very long.
Seems like an eternity.
Yep. Seems like it, but
I guess at the same time.
so let's see. But so you wanted story quality.
Well, I wanted to get. You have some stories in you, and I wanted to have them recorded so that they wouldn't be lost.
Well, I don't know if they got any good out of the conversation we had. I don't know if you had any good stories, but.
Well, I've got the story of compressed steel, I've got the story of state steel, and I've got the story of your life.
Well, if you got questions as you ponder it, just feel free to ask.
Yeah. I guess, happy with your life?
Very much so. Very much so. 90 is really not that old, but I'll be 90 in April.
90 in April.
When's April? Oh, I got almost a whole year to go.
Yeah.
To get to 90. It is kind of funny. Sometimes I go past. I drive past the old house, and it just seems kind of. It's just so funny as I look down the lawn looking down towards the back of the yard. It's just different. I don't know. It's not a lot to say about it.
Here's something I just thought of. Didn't we do the moon landing in 1968?
Didn't we do the what?
The moon landing.
1958.
1968 was it, or I think it was 1968 when we did the moon landing.
I think it was about. I think it was somewhere in there.
Because you'd have lived through that. Did you ever see the live broadcast of the astronauts landing on the moon?
I don't know if they were live broadcasts or not. But I said we certainly got the broadcasts of it and all that. I certainly went for that, and it was kind of a lot different.
Because you lived through the space race, I guess also the Cold War.
Kind of, which was now 50 years ago, wasn't it?
That's I think you're not too far off from seeing people go back to the moon.
Yeah, well, when they go back. Well, right now there's the argument that I don't know how much you follow this, but they're arguing about when they're going to go back to the other side, and it seems like the Chinese have gotten somehow to the other side, where they send their
dark side of the moon, right?
You've been reading that or hearing about it.
Yeah, because I know the issue is because it's the dark side of the moon. It never. Well, the moon precesses a little bit, so actually we can see about 55% of the surface.
We can't hear you.
Hot dogs on it. What was your mother we were eating when?
She said she was going to be over like 3:30.
About 3:30?
Yeah.
Well,
Okay, well, when they walk in.
well, we still have 10 minutes.
Still have about 10 minutes then.
How do you like to watch? You can't even read it. They should have put numbers down there, but nobody knows what this all means.
Yeah.
You know what it means.
Maybe I'll take a picture and post it so people can see your watch if they're listening to more than just audio.
I know very well. You know the Roman numerals. You know that.
Yeah, you got a watch with Roman numerals on it, and it's square face too.
There's a 1, there's a 2, there's a 3, there's a 4, there's a 5.
Interesting that they choose to represent the 4 on your watch with 4 eyes instead of the IV.
You say 4 eyes?
Yeah, because you can represent it like IV, that's 4, or you can represent it with 4 eyes. They're both valid.
Oh yeah. Well, pick the number you're talking about. This would be a 4.
Yeah, that's your 4 right there.
Yeah, and that's not a very good 4. The 4s that are better is when they have the 1 and then the V.
Yeah.
That's a better one. And I never even thought about that. And this one is in English. It says Seco. And this one says solar. Why does it say solar? It says solar for very good reason. This damn watch is following the sun.
All right.
I mean, it never needs any winding. It takes the solar goes down and.
Wait, is it a solar-powered watch?
It's a solar-powered watch.
Oh, that's neat.
The only thing that is I'm a little sorry about it. I never thought about it when I got the watch. It was only about $150 one. It wasn't one of these really expensive $1,000 watches, and I thought it was pretty good. And I never realized that when Sheila bought it for me, she bought it for me, but it doesn't have any light.
Oh, so if you need to see it in the dark, you can't see your watch in the dark.
I can't see it in the dark, and I should have got one that had light and then through the day of it, but I didn't, and so in the middle of the night I have to get up and tiptoe into the bathroom, turn on the light, and look to see what time it is.
That's the thing.
It isn't really that bad because I got a clock on the stand beside the bed, but so all I have to do is look at the clock. But it's kind of fun. It entertains me through the middle of the night.
Yeah. So, I guess I got nothing else really to ask you.
Yeah, yep. That's,
You've told your stories. You've
well, I had a lot of, long stories doing the things in, down to State Steel where, like I'd run into some problem that I'd have to stay late because Junior Barker, who's really a hard-working guy, he would stay late because something was broken, and I stayed because I wanted to stay till we got it fixed, and it'd be 7 or 8 o'clock at night and getting dark, and of course Sheila got upset with me being gone so long. So I mean, just things. It's
thanks.
but.
Oh, then.
When we lived in Sioux City, the house across the street from us was really big. The guy that lived there really had a lot of clout. Actually, I can't remember what I'm talking about, but anyway, he eventually sold it. I didn't have much to say about that really, but I mean I did, but
Yeah.
So we've got 5 minutes yet before Debbie comes.
Yeah. Anyway, you don't have to talk the whole way through. It's already an hour and 2.5 minutes.
Yeah, well, if you come up with things, it's
Well, I guess I'll just one little question.
okay.
When you were young, do you think you would have seen yourself ending up here? Or what did you want to grow up to be?
I don't think I ever thought of it. I just knew I wanted. I was working in a scrapyard, and especially when we got the shredder. I figured that I had to work here because there was it's kind of a lot of things to do to keep it running, and but no, somehow or other I don't think I ever thought where I was going, and I never thought of retiring because the way I look at it, when people ask me, "Hey Norman, when are you going to retire?" and my answer is, "Hell, I'm still tired from the first time."
Yeah.
Which I think is pretty funny.
Yeah. So you just kind of.
Nobody else does, but.
Yeah, you just kind of went with the flow and went where life led you.
Yep, that's it.
I guess life led you here. And life will lead you on for a couple more years yet.
Yeah, so I'll see what happens in 20 or 30 years. That's all.
Yeah.
And if you play it right, maybe you too can play it for another 30 or 40 years after you're 90.
Oh, I think we'll have. We'll see what the future holds.
Yeah, I mean, I think we've got some good genes behind us.
I mean, make it to 90. It's reasonable genetic integrity.
Well, what's going to eventually happen is eventually something happens. The person gets ill or something, gets sick or something. But
Oh, I just heard a car.
really,
And there
I
they
just
are.
heard a door. I heard the door.
Well then, I guess that's kind of a hard limit on interview.
Yep. Okay.
All right.
If you get any more questions, maybe we could write a book. I don't know.
Maybe.
If we decide to write a book, let me know.
If you're ever looking to have biography written for you.
I can't believe it. Here comes up. Because doesn't that look just like Billy, the statue here?
Well then, thanks Norman for letting me record your stories and asking me some questions and stuff.
Yeah. You're very welcome. Anytime.
Yeah.
Anytime. If I can figure out how to stand up, let's see if I can figure out how to stand up. Oh boy.